Thank you for listening to the Biblical Editorial Review, which airs Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central and 7 p.m. Pacific. Listen to the show only on the Resilient Christian Radio.
Racism. There's a lot of people do think racism is still alive. But let me ask you this question here. Do you think racism is dead, or do you think it's still alive right now?
Oh, I definitely think racism still exists. In terms of overt racist actions, they're, they don't happen often, not the overt racial actions, not like you had in 50, 60 plus years ago. But we definitely do have instances of racism and definitely racial discrimination. So those are actually two different things, but we definitely have, it's definitely alive.
But, it's kind of, I'm glad you said that, because I want to hit on something that a lot of people don't talk about, and that is that, let me ask you this, because it's like people are still keep bringing it up. And I think the main reason why people keep bringing it up, because it's like a wound. It's like somebody has cut deep and they put salt on the wound and it's not going to heal properly. Let me ask you this: when, as a Christian and everything else, let me ask you this: what do you think about when you see people in church predicate racism? What do you think about that sometimes?
What do you mean, predicating racism in church? Are you talking about the pastor, or what?
Yeah, pastor mainly. Well, in the pulpit, where you have some people, I ain't say all of it, some pastors, because a lot of people on the group put in Jeremiah Wright and other people like that. Do you think that people like him or others are preaching to the Word of God of the terms of love, or are they preach the Word of God of terms of racism?
Well, it depends, in what way they are talking about racism or racial action. If they're just telling or talking about something that is, if it's true, it's true.
Okay.
If they're trying to make everything to be a racial divisive action, I think that's wrong, because not everything that happens to black people is because of racism. Not everything is racism. What we do is that we tend to interchange racism, prejudice, and racial discrimination to all mean the same. And those are very different terms, and they mean different things. So, everything becomes racism. And when that happens, when we actually see instances of racism to non-blacks, it becomes kind of muted, because you just use the word so loosely.
Right.
So we need to apply racism when racism actually exists, prejudice when that exists, and racial discrimination when that exists. That's how people really pay attention to racism and try to put a stop to it.
That's amazing to say that, because, a lot of times, and people don't talk about that, because they use that word loosely, just like they use love loosely. And when they don't allocate it to the right situation or circumstances, they always have made it to something that's not. When you was watching the news, or let's just say news or television and local news or whatever, and you hear people keep on talking about racism like it is a drug, in other words. And people just kept on saying, racism is alive and well, and is this, everything else. Is it pure ignorance to people or about racism, or is it because of family tradition about racism? Because sometimes people pass down their hatred towards a person and something like that.
Well, see, I personally think if you're talking about I guess any media, I was about to say mainstream, but it really doesn't matter. The media, they want to sensationalize things to make it more interesting, to get more viewers. Again, I think some things are racist and it's really not. See, I don't really focus so much on racism. Number one, racism really isn't about hate. Racism is about control. It's not about hate. It's about I see another person, I feel that I am more superior of another race, And typically that's done through how we control them. So sometimes if you're talking about white-black kind of racism, you're talking more so white control. If you think about slaves during slavery, many slave masters liked their slaves. Some of them even loved their slaves, but they were still slaves. You know, they were still slaves. So that's why I personally believe you have many people, and I'm just talking about white people because we're, white-black situation. You can apply this to others too, and even blacks, in some instances. But there are many more racist white people, I believe, that are out here, but they don't think they're racist because they don't hate black people, because they have black friends, because they may love a black person. But if you listen to them talk, they talk from a position of that they feel they are more superior than black people, and that's racism. But I don't really focus on that because I believe in liberty as a Christian, as a Christian conservative. Everybody has the right to think what they want. If someone wants to be racist, more power to them. They can think that they're racist all day long. The only problem that I'm concerned about is their action. Just don't, act out on what you think. And that doesn't occur a lot. So where we really need to pay attention to is racial discrimination. And then not all racial discrimination. It's one thing to know that racial discrimination exists. It's one thing to observe it. But it's another to have it, impede our socio-economic progress. I heard this from an economist. His name was Walter Williams. He's one of my favorite economists. And he says if said racial discrimination, if it's not impeding your success, and you can still progress, what you really need to focus on is racial discrimination that prevents you from progressing. That's where you really need to look at. So you're going to always have racial discrimination, I believe. You're going to always have that. But if it's not stopping you, it may make things harder. It may make things longer for you, but it's not stopping you from doing what you need to do for yourself and your family. So you focus on those things that does act as a doorstop that prevents you.
That's amazing that you say that, because a lot of people don't talk that way. Because a lot of reasons, I'm going to tell you some many reasons. What you said is absolutely true. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that, they utilize something they don't understand, that they try to put it into a content of something that doesn't even make sense. Like you just said, that racism in a lot of terms is not what people appease on. And a lot of blacks still want to harp on it, but it's not even a true dynamic, in other words. Because like you just said, something that's profound, that racism, you shouldn't be, a lot of people should not be focused on it, but they need to be focused on the things that will get you through, that will make you a better person, or something that will advance you. And like you said, as a conservative, you do have that right to feel or be that kind of way, but it is not the right way if you want to. Because, like in the Word of God, you have people in the Word of God, like you have racism going on in the Bible, but they know that's the same man, because of control, because you have the Egyptians control the Jews at the time with Moses, and the list goes on. But let me ask you this: when you talk about people of control, who wants to control people, I know there's a lot of Caucasians or white people who wants to control people. And we're not trying to get certain people, but we know from the heart of man that's a sin. What is it that people are portraying when they bring that kind of control? Because you got so many people control people in different areas, and they want to keep people in that, like some black people in that mindset that you can't get further in life. So let me ask you this: what kind of control are you really talking about in particular in that way?
Well, when I say control, and again, I'm not harping on white people just simply because I'm black. I'm just talking about black, white type situations. Oftentimes, it's not necessarily something that it's not intentional. Oftentimes, and then, you know what, if it's not racist, if it's not racial discrimination, it could be because I don't like you because you're a woman, or I don't like you because I don't like, what you wear, or something like that. But in terms of race relations, race control would be, for example, black people may be able to progress in corporate America, but they can only go so high. So if let's just face it, when we talk about corporate America, black people really control very little, okay? So that's all under, that's all white control, and that has nothing to, I'm just saying that's what it is. It is. And so we may be able to progress, and corporate America may allow us to, but just so far, because, not further than me, not to get ahead of me, but you can succeed only for so much, enough that you don't have control over me. Now, one person would say that's racism, and then someone else would say that's competition. But I do believe if you're doing that because, I would do this to a black person, but I don't have that same type behavior towards a white person, it is because of their race. It is because, and it's about competition. If you think about it, many races, KKK, I would say maybe a Richard Spencer or any of these people, okay, that some of them may not necessarily hate black people, but they don't want us in this country. They don't like us, but they don't necessarily hate us. They see us as competition. Black people here are taking their jobs, taking their people, their intermarriage, they see black people as competition. So that's their hate. We are taking something that is theirs, and they. So, you do have that, but I just think a lot of people just think because you don't like me, that's racism. That's not racism. There are a lot of racists who like black people. Lots of them. Right.
You're right. And let me try to switch gears a little bit here, because you hit on something that's totally right on a lot of areas. And I want to go to the spiritual side of it because of how people use, people still, and I talk to many people. I live in the South for so long, and I moved up Midwest, and I moved back. And I met with so many people, literally, who doesn't understand the criteria of why blacks are one way and whites is another thing. And these are people who are mixed races. But they're talking about the spiritual side of it, because a lot of them are Christians. And they said that when we're going to heaven, we're going to be all one. And God is going to be the one that's going to that make these races for a reason. Let me ask you this as a black woman, as a Christian black woman. When you see people of our ethnic group or other ethnic groups that really talk in, like you just said, like the KKK and something like that, or the black supremacy, whoever, but they say they're Christians. What do you think about that when people talk that term, but they know that God is love?
I question, honestly, if you know what? I have no heaven or hell to put anyone in. So if they say they are Christian, that's not something I'm going to debate, but I personally do question it, because you're correct. God is love, and we are to love one another. So, we don't necessarily have to like one another, but we must love one another. And if we're not loving our fellow man, if we are seeing, or if someone is seeing another race,
check us out at Facebook at RCR Network, and also on Twitter at RCR_network, and our website at rcrnetwork.com.